Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of the Blockchain Expert Insights podcast. Today, I'm delighted to have Amna here. Hello, Amna. How are you keeping?
Hello, everyone. I'm good. Thanks for having me, Trevor.
No problem at all. So, as everybody knows and everyone listens to this podcast, it's a quick, overview synopsis of a particular field of the blockchain world. And to get it up and running, I'd like to ask you this question. So, if you could provide a bit of background on yourself, Amna, and your experience with blockchain, because I know from your LinkedIn profile, you're an economist and a strategist for blockchain, Web 3.0, and the metaverse. But could you, in your own words, could you explain a bit more about your background, please?
Yes. For those who don't know me, my name is Amna Usman Chaudhry, and yes, I am very active on LinkedIn. I like sharing my passion for blockchain, metaverse, and Web3. I'm the founding member of the Oxford Blockchain Foundation and also the founding member of BlockClean. And I am heading research and innovation with the All Stars Women NFT Club and DAO. I am a graduate level lecturer with teaching experience in London and Dubai, where I'm currently based. And traditionally, I'm a financial economist. I have some economic research experience with the World Bank. And now I am, as Trevor mentioned, a strategist for blockchain, metaverse, and Web3, which are basically kind of an extension, I feel, of the whole blockchain premise as well.
Fantastic. And my second question is, what does blockchain mean to you, Amna?
Right. So I think in order to understand what blockchain means to me, it's good to introduce what blockchain particularly is. I have this very simplified explanation of blockchain, which I use, which I feel is received well by people. So basically, suppose I and Trevor, you and all the listeners, wherever they are in the world, have a ledger. And a ledger is basically a database, right? And everyone around the world, China, Egypt, USA, UK, they all have the same ledger. So as soon as I enter any value into the ledger, it is updated almost instantaneously, no matter where you are in the world. And this is a special kind of technology, a ledger called distributed ledger technology. And blockchain is a special distributed ledger technology in which the data is stored in blocks. And once each block is full of data, it is linked to the block behind it using cryptographic hash functions, which very simplified is a unique digital fingerprint, you can say. And then the next block is linked to that block, and there is a chain of blocks of data, which is basically essentially what a blockchain is. And for me, blockchain is possibility, because I remember when I started reading about blockchain, a lot of people, associate blockchain with cryptocurrency as well. So I've been fortunate that through my learnings, I realized there is so much possibility of addressing old existing problems with this solution, relatively new solution of blockchain, with its advantages of transparency, decentralization, giving people power back into their own hands, banking the unbanked. There is immense possibility, whether it's the healthcare, whether it's supply chain, whether it's banking the unbanked, it's digital identity for refugees and also for good. So that is blockchain for me.
Fantastic overview there of what blockchain is, Amna. And I suppose, could you explain to our listeners, you mentioned the word DAO there and how it relates in the world of DeFi or decentralized finance?
Yes, so DAO is basically a decentralized autonomous organization, and that probably sounds complicated as well, but it's very simple. So most of us, or the listeners and everyone, has heard of and probably are working for a traditional company, which is basically hierarchy based. So you have the president, and then the directors, the vice president, the director, and all the other employees come next. So when there's a decision or an important aspect concerning the company, it's usually taken into account only by the top hierarchy of the company. And sometimes employees don't even know why there was a merger or why something happened, and this is very centralized. So these DAOs are decentralized, and they provide a democratic solution to the future of companies. And basically all the members of the DAOs will have a say in what is going to be, any decision that is going to affect the DAO. And this is done through voting using governance tokens, and the majority of the vote is progress. So it's very democratic, and it's also very transparent because it is based on the blockchain. So it is basically, a decentralized democratic version of companies where everything is transparent and for the people who themselves decide the direction of the DAO.
Fantastic. And I suppose my next question is, we saw in the media over the last months the concept of a stable coin pop up. Could you provide, an explanation of what exactly a stable coin is, Amna?
Yeah, so, cryptocurrencies, I'm sure everyone is aware by now that they are very volatile. Like sometimes they're up there, then down, up and down. It's quite volatile, even for those seasoned to the cycles of the cryptocurrencies. And stable coins provide a way to kind of make it more stable and decrease the volatility. And they do this through collateralization. And this is done by 4 ways. So there's 4 ways that stable coins can be collateralized. You can have stable coins collateralized on a fiat currency, such as the US dollar, and we have Tether. It can be collateralized to asset or commodity, such as gold, and we have Tether Gold. It can be collateralized to some cryptocurrency as well. And we have, for example, we have DAI, and then we have algorithm in which there's no collateralization, but it is held together by this algorithm. But that is still not the best way to go forward. I think we saw in May what happened with the Terra Luna episode. And so there are basically 4 ways of collateralization, and that is how the volatility is decreased in stable coins.
Fantastic. And I suppose one of my big interests is researching how blockchain can be used for good, sustainable, issues and so on. Have you any examples of blockchain being used for good, Amna, that you've come across?
Yeah, I think I get really passionate about blockchain being used for good. There are so many examples, and one of the main reasons is because sometimes we want to. I'm sure everyone wants to donate to an organization or a charity, but they are not sure how their funds would be used. But on the blockchain, because of the transparency, anyone can see how their funds are going to be utilized. And examples of blockchain for good, I think one of my favorite examples is how the United Nations Innovation Office is using it. So UNICEF, which I'm sure everyone must have heard of, is the United Nations arm which helps with children. And UNICEF came up with the Giga blockchain project in 2019. And what they did was, how important internet connectivity is for education now. If you have children who do not have access to the internet, they are lagged behind. So it provided internet education through the Giga blockchain project to underprivileged children. And recently in December, they launched the largest NFT collection by the United Nations ever. It's 1,000 NFTs called the Patchwork Kingdom NFTs. And the sale of those will also be used to fund school connectivity to children. And not just UNICEF, there are so many DAOs also that are working for good. Another thing that I'm very passionate about is, gender equality, and it's just to bridge the gender gap. It doesn't mean that, I have something against men. I feel I always need to clarify this, but yeah, because there's a huge gap, and we have HerDAO, HerDAO, and there's a lack of blockchain developers in the world, and especially of female. So what they do is they use the money from their DAO, and they help female blockchain developers, and they fly them over to different events happening around the world, and they help them participate in hackathons and which are held, for example, ETH New York City or ETH, I think there's one happening in Paris now. So, and through that, they give them opportunities to be employed and be seen. And then there's Angel Alliance as well, which is helping women, the same way by providing funds. And then the All Stars Women DAO, which I am part of, in which also is focusing on empowering women through education, through providing funds. So there are a lot of examples, and this is really, one aspect of blockchain which needs to be highlighted more. So thank you for asking that question.
And thank you, Amna, for providing those fantastic examples, which I will also explore following this podcast, and I'm sure our listeners will. So fantastic. Thank you for that. And I suppose, we're currently in, as you mentioned earlier, the crypto market is quite volatile. It's had knock-on consequences. So many people say we're in a bear market or a crypto winter. But I think underpinning what this podcast is all about, advancing awareness of, blockchain, DeFi, DAO, the metaverse, Web 3.0. Would you have any advice of how we could advance, education and awareness in these areas, as, providing examples which you've provided eloquently there in the previous question on these fascinating, blockchain for good projects? Is there any advice you would have on how to advance, blockchain awareness?
Yes, so I think that there are, as we have seen, blockchain is a relatively new, it just came in the past decade or so, and we have seen the evolution of blockchain into DeFi, into NFTs, into metaverse, into Web3. So I feel these do not restrict blockchain just to the definition of cryptocurrency. Have a look into understanding blockchain. And I always say, just because you get excited about blockchain, don't expect every problem has a solution of blockchain, because some people just want to, okay, we heard blockchain, now we are going to apply this to our work, but always do a proper assessment and then strategize which blockchain is best for you. And beyond the crypto winter that we have, there is a lot of possibility. And we have just seen in the past few years how it has evolved, from just blockchain and cryptocurrency into so much. So find where you're passionate about, whether it's sports, whether it's, helping for good, where you're working, and see, I'm sure you will find some aspect of blockchain which can help you. And that is regardless of the volatility of the crypto, and particularly in Web3, as we're, the basic foundation of Web3 is a democratic, decentralized. I mean, it was the vision of Gavin Wood, the founder of Polkadot, that it is a democratic and decentralized version of the web. And for that, we need the blockchain. So there are a lot of ways we can encourage, adoption of blockchain beyond just the market outlook, and a lot of value to be had. And always keep in mind the importance of, gender parity, because the United Nations did UNDP actually did released a report, the Gender Norm Social Index, which said that 90% of men and women both have some sort of bias against women. So we need to make sure that these biases do not get carried into the new future digital economy with us. And these are some of the things that we need to keep in mind.
And on that great note, my final questions are, is there any further insights that you'd like to give, any projects you're working on or talks, and how can our listeners get in contact with yourself, Amna, if they want to find more about blockchain, the metaverse, and Web 3.0?
Yeah, so I think because I'm based in Dubai, there's a lot of exciting stuff happening here. So I thought I would update over there. Just one day ago, we heard about the Dubai Metaverse strategy. And yesterday, we heard about the Dubai Metaverse Assembly that is taking place in the Museum of the Future on 28th and 29th of September, which is the amazing building, and where I was also fortunate to be a speaker for the first Web3 event summit held in the world, I think. the Meta Decrypt Summit held at the Museum of the Future earlier this month. So smart cities are something which, you know, should be looked into. There's a huge potential for not just the people living in smart cities, but for the government as well. I remember when Dubai launched the Dubai blockchain strategy in 2016, what they did was they saved, through that launch in 2016, which is quite early, they saved around $3 billion US in just operational costs and 77 million hours work. And then you also have the sustainable effect, because they saved, I think, 398 million documents printed annually. So through these implementations on a governmental level as well and a federal level, that is something I encourage, you know, if any of the listeners are into this, to look into smart cities and how blockchain and even metaverse and Web3 can affect that. And I think the last question was how to get in touch. I post, I think, a lot on LinkedIn related to metaverse and blockchain and Web3 as a whole. So if you're interested in these subjects, do give me a follow. So Amna Usman Chaudhry is my name. And it was a pleasure being with this in this podcast. I really enjoy listening to it. Thank you, Trevor, for having me. And thank you, everyone, for listening.
And on that great note, thank you, Amna, for giving up your time today. Fascinating insights there across all those questions. Thank you, Amna.